Welcome everyone to another Industry and Transition Zoom call. I'm very pleased to have Jeff Crosby with us. I am going to do some explaining. I'm in a hotel because I am moving my home, Jeff, from a horse farm to a regular house. You know what I mean? So it's a big week-long ordeal. And I'm staying at the Salamander Hotel in Middleburg, where you'll come stay one day when you come to visit, and it's fine. But if you hear dogs barking or a maid coming in or something like that, that's just going to add to the flavor of our interview today. So I'm pleased to have Jeff Crosby, the CEO of 3xEquity. Jeff, is that the preferred title here, or what?
I guess so. CEO, founder. You can call me whatever you want to call me.
and I will. Look, it's really interesting to have you here, because, and I'm glad we have you here, because you have a unique perspective on things. And to make, I just want to be clear with everyone who's listening, that when you're an advisor, and we have many of them on Advisor Hub who request from us, help with finding a new firm, Jeff is the guy we send you to. So Jeff works with us, exclusively, and there's a reason he does, because Jeff is also, he's embarrassed to say this, he's a triathlete, he's a $5 million producer in his own right. And I think that gives you not only a lot of credibility, Jeff, but I think, puts you in a unique position to help people and to talk about, what's going on in this industry. So that's your commercial. After this, I want to talk about sort of your point of view on where we are, kind of, and where we're going. And people are really interested. When this year started, and I was talking about this just the other day with the folks at Cetera, I didn't think that we were going to have a great recruiting year. I thought things were going to be rough, and I didn't know that this Zoom thing was actually going to maybe be able to sort of create these virtual home office visits, and that they were going to end up being successful. But we ended up having a pretty good year. What was your opinion of how 2020 went, given the pandemic and all the tough things we had to go through?
So you mean you were wrong, Tony, with a lot of other...
All right, so now let's get into it, because not only was I wrong, but I was wrong for about 2 weeks, because I wrote that the article I wrote, it was in April. This thing started in March. In April, I wrote an article about what a 3-year-old can teach us about, our business. And it was all about Zoom technology taking over, and actually there being a lot of acceptance. So I was wrong for about 2 weeks, I would say.
Yeah, no, actually, I remember that article. That was a good article. A lot of people have been wrong. I mean, I'm talking even obviously in the investment world. There, I'm on many calls as a wealth advisor in the first quarter, just listening to the experts, and this thing's 2-year recovery, 3-year recovery. There's no way this thing's going to be a V-shaped recovery. So we all have to be careful what we think to be true in the future, and it just changed the way people are doing business. Broker dealers found an effective way to have VIP, services over Zoom and Teams call. Advisors got more comfortable with it. Clients got more comfortable with it. And frankly, too, part of it is that, the advisor might be more present, that they're not working off their phone as much. Maybe they're in front of their computer. So it just, in some ways, there was less distractions, and someone was able to focus more on their maybe their own financial plan, where they want to go. And it just opened up a lot of questions, and it made them more present to probably be able to take calls from other transition consultants out there. So it just
yeah, I think what I'm getting out of that is something that I sort of agree with, which is this sort of, it bled inwards from the client to the advisor. I mean, the clients needed to talk to them, and the clients sort of put advisors at ease that this Zoom stuff was okay. So that's kind of my mind where the acceptance came from that, 80-year-old client who wants to see their grandkids. They're using Zoom. They're seeing their doctor on Zoom, for God's sake. They're talking to their lawyer on Zoom, so they're talking to us. And that really bled into recruiting. I mean, so the fact is that it was a banner year for recruiting last year, all through this pandemic. And some of it maybe had to do with what you were saying. Guys are at home in front of their computers, maybe a little time to think about what the future might be.
And frankly, probably it's a little safer too.
Yeah.
You can hide behind the computer. You don't have to go make a special trip. You don't have to go meet a consultant for lunch. It doesn't expose you. So someone, the advisors, the practices probably felt a bit more safe, where they may have controlled more of the of the conversation, the pace of things, than actually the broker. So they were able to pump brakes at appropriate times and dissect things. I mean, we had a big win in, we moved a $3.5 million practice during the heat of the pandemic. They had the PPP loan they had to deal with. They had a big team, but we were advising them along the way. And, we had earned their trust and confidence, and it was hands-on. And frankly, to this day, I still have never met the person in person. It's all been, over Teams. So we dug in and we did great work. They trusted us, and the firm they went to did great work. And, it was obviously very effective. And
that's crazy, because I know that you're a hands-on guy. You'd love to get out there and shake hands and see people and get in front of them. So that's got to be, that had to have been hard at first. Let's put it that. It must have been difficult.
You know what? I'm going to say this to the advisors out there. I was on this whole Zoom thing, WebEx thing, Skype thing before the pandemic ever hit. In a wealth management practice, I mean, I meet with clients on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I'm going to run a very efficient practice. So I'm in front. We've been doing WebEx meetings for a long time, for our clients, because it's a really effective way to run your wealth management business. I'll show you your financial plan on the screen. So, I'm not trying to say we're better than anyone else.
No, but that's important, because I think that this, I think that what's gone on in 2020 is going to separate out the herd a little bit. The advisors who embrace technology, you got a thriving $5 million practice, right? So you must be doing something right.
I just got
all
lucky.
appearances to the contrary.
I got lucky. That's it.
All right. So you must be doing something right. And I would have to say that the technology piece has got to be one of the critical, tenets of that, because the folks who don't embrace technology, there is a little bit of a have and have not in our business now. There are some folks who are, believe it or not, are still struggling. Smaller practices, just sort of using this as a crutch, but integrated in your business practice going forward. You did it before. You're going to keep using technology going forward.
Oh yeah, I mean, of course, it's the way that it has been, but it's taken a big leap forward, through the pandemic. And just referral marketing. I mean, how using technologies for advisors. I mean, this isn't about how an advisor moves from one broker dealer to another, but on the wealth management side, where we're able to advise the advisor if they want to move or not. It's like, is part of your goal to grow your practice? Is that what you want to do? Well, if you want to grow your practice, is your existing broker dealer the best to do it with, or RIA, or someone else? Well, but within that, if you want to grow, how are you going to grow? How are you going to get more wealthy clients like a Tony Serrani? How are you going to get a Tony Serrani to refer your services? How are you going to use technology? How are you going to use Zoom to be able to grow your client base through referrals? And, and you can either resist it or you can accept it and adapt to it and figure out ways. And so that's what, the successful advisors are doing. And if their firm doesn't allow them technology-wise to do it as well, then yeah, that's a reason to move to a new firm. If a BD that they're with has tight compliance reins on them that doesn't allow them to be as flexible, that's a reason to move. So
yeah, when you move, there are push and pull factors, right? So clearly, when trying to figure out with advisors where they want to go next, come 2021. You've got to keep this technology sort of dead center of your vision of where you want to be. And the other thing I thought was interesting that you said was advisors have to want to grow their business. So if they don't want to grow their business, how much attention as a recruiter can you really pay to them? I'm sure you want to work with the folks who are like you, that are actively looking to continue to take over the world and help their clients.
Well, and I just think it's important for the consumer. I mean, if you're not growing your business as a financial advisor, Tony, I can assure you, you're not receiving very great service by your financial advisor. So your financial advisor needs to be challenged. The financial advisor needs to break things to make them better all the time. And how do you do that? Through growth, through getting on new clients. And most consumers out there, I believe this, that don't have a financial advisor. So if you want to grow, what's the best firm to do that with, and which firm has the best technology? And frankly, if you don't want to grow, the broker dealers that you're moving to, they know it as well. They see your AUM, they see your trailing 12. They're not that excited about you. Most broker dealers want someone who's invigorated, who's on fire to grow their practice, to help their clients. And if that's you out there, you are a hot commodity among many opportunities out there, broker dealers or IRAs, because that's, you know, that's what those folks want. So
Like, you know, advisors are, you know, interesting because if you know, an advisor's a jerk, his clients are jerks. And the same thing with a firm. If the firms act like a bunch of jerks, then, you know, all the advisors there are jerks, and it's just not the place you want to be. So you find people who are motivated. They usually are pretty nice guys because they want to they want to cut through that stuff. They can relate to clients, and they don't want the nonsense, right? As a top producer,
and you know, it's like 3xEquity when he retired from Chrysler. I remember reading an article in 1995 in Fortune magazine. He said how I flunked retirement, and he said because he never retired to something, he retired from something. So I think for an advisor to move, what are you moving to? You want to move to something rather than, you know, from something. So what opportunity fits for you in your lifestyle, your culture, you know, how you want to grow. And I think that's, you know, that's key. So an advisor, sometimes, I don't mean to beat my colleagues up, but sometimes we don't do the best financial planning for our own self, asking ourselves, where do we want to be in 3 years? And
right?
what's the best roadmap to get there? Because that's what we're trying to advise our clients on. What's the best roadmap to get to where they want to be in 3 years? And so we need to do, as an advisor, you know, self-reflection ourselves. And that's at 3xEquity, where we feel like, you know, because I'm one of them, I can help them, you know, I can glean those things from them and help them to decide and figure out opportunities, what might be the best fit going forward from different opportunities they have out there. And Tony, I will say this too, you know, sorry, you know, we do get paid moving advisors from one broker dealer to another, but sometimes it makes sense not to move. Sometimes it's better right where you are, and you want someone to be able to tell you that as well. It's not always greener on the other side. So we dig into that. We, you know, as an expert in the industry, we, you know, we try to understand that it's not always greener on the other side.
What about there's obviously an element in our business of advisors who are, you know, fat and happy, right? I mean, or just not motivated and sort of happy. You know, just, you know, you got to start making $300,000 or $400,000 a year. There's more money than your father ever made, you know, in 10 years. And you're all of a sudden thinking, yeah, I'm not motivated. I don't want to do anything. I know what your answer is going to be, because I think that it has a negative impact on the client too. When you have a guy who's like, sort of, you know, not really motivated. But how do you handle a guy like that? And there are plenty of them out there.
Tony, you know what? I can't help them, because if they're not willing to help themselves, I can't help them. If they're stuck in their behavior, I'm not going to be able to take a $300,000 producer who's been that most of their life to 400, but I can help a producer who's at 3 million to get to 5 million, because that person is motivated. So that person who's, you know, making 300,000 or whatever, and they then doing that, they probably want to be in a situation where, you know, the cost is minimal and therefore their profit margin's high. But as you know, to increase your profit margin the most, it comes through growth. It doesn't come through cutting expenses. It comes through growth, getting the next best client, figuring out a referral system, going to a broker dealer opportunity that can help you grow. And frankly, you know, a lot of advisors want to grow through acquisitions, which I get, and understandably so. And they might think it's the fastest way to the end zone. And some broker dealers offer better opportunities than others, but there's also a lot of risk in that. There's money. Why not just buckle down and be able to grow your practice organically? The problem is, Tony, a lot of advisors aren't motivated to do that, and they don't know how to do that, and they're not willing to do that. But if they were, that's also really a great way to grow one's practice.
You know, those opportunities are becoming less and less. I hate to be like this, you know, always talking about the way things were and all that. And I know some people today on the phone don't necessarily value their branch managers. I was a branch manager, and I think I added a lot of value. And when someone says, well, my branch manager is great because he leaves me alone, that lets me think that they don't know what a real branch manager should be doing. He should be helping you grow your practice and motivating you. But my experience is similar to what you were talking about, where I had a producer who was doing north of $10 million, and I did a quarterly business planning program. The first guy in my office every quarter was the $10 million guy, the first guy. And I'm not telling him something he doesn't know. I'm just helping him. The second guy in my office was the $5 or $7 million producer. And I used to have to chase the $300,000 producer around the office to come in for a meeting. You know what I mean? Because sometimes you just need someone to talk to. And what I'm saying is those opportunities are less today than they were 10 or 15 years ago, when you had branch managers who used to get paid $1 million a year to help grow a book. Now, a lot of people don't have anybody to talk to.
And so you're saying it's less because the business model of the broker dealers don't have that built in as much?
It's not built in. And I think that if you're an RIA, you're maybe the prettiest girl, handsomest guy at the dance. You don't really have anybody, no one approaches you. You don't have anybody to talk to about it. That's another thing I think it's unique about your little practice there is that, hey, I've been through this. I've got it. I've done some growth too, I think
and Tony, I would kind of disagree with you a little bit in that some broker dealers out there, they feel like that's how they would differentiate themselves, that they do feel like they have the branch management structure. They do feel like they have the coaching, but that's where, they've got to be able to,
prove it. Well, it's got to be
how
good.
they differentiate themselves.
Yeah, right. It's got to be good. And I guess I'm not trying to bash a particular system, but there are, the wirehouses sort of devalued their management teams and threw out the guys who were making a lot of money and had a lot of experience, sort of rehired babysitter type of, management. I know that's a big generalization, but
yeah. And let me just kind of share this, my philosophy and how I go about it. I mean, by no means am I a Michael Jordan or Tiger Woods, but LeBron James, but I know you're not a big sports guy, but those guys try to get better in the off season. They're your $10 million producer. They're the guys that are first in your office at 7 a.m. And in professional sports, that's what they are. I'm 57 years old. I'm doing my 25th Ironman. I'm getting faster and more fit than I ever have, but I'm changing things and how I do things and whatnot. And in one's practice, again, not to spiritualize things too much, but there's a parable in the Bible that talks about, more logs together create more energy. And so if someone wants to grow, you want to be able to create that more energy. And how do you create more energy? You could hire Tony Serrani, because he's going to give you energy. You could be in a system where there's a branch manager. You can go out and hire a coach. But if you want to grow as good as you are, you want to bring in coaching around you to help you elevate it and, break through the ceiling of complexity, as Dan Sullivan calls it. So, and that's where I feel. Go ahead.
But I'm just thinking that's how you got to sift through these guys and then sift through the companies you would recommend or the firms you'd recommend to them by saying, which guy fits where. This guy needs this kind of coaching. This guy needs this kind of structure. And either way, you're trying to set them up for growth because that's the easiest guy to place, I would think.
You would think so, but it's important, Tony, just really find out why does someone want to move from one broker dealer to another? Is it the big fat check? Is it the other reasons? Are there other reasons? Do they want to create a succession plan? Do they want to train a junior guy? Do they want to, monetize their business? Do they want to grow? Do they want to change their business to more, fee-based? What is their goals? And I think for someone that just goes for the check, that's probably a lost leader. You want to grow, you want to go into the right culture. And that's for us, Tony, that's where we want to be able to learn is from, as many of the broker dealers that we can out there, their value proposition, and you've got a great partnership with so many of them out there, which we appreciate, the introduction you've given to us, to them, so that we can learn their value proposition and, really be able to help find that right fit. But it goes back to everything. What are your goals? Where do you want to go? And I think that's kind of the unique aspect that we do. And, we don't have to move these guys. We're not like this blood cutting recruiter that we got to move it. We really try to listen to that candidate's needs and make the right fit.
So we talked about some of the trends that were accelerating. I always think when we have a crisis and then and technology is a key thing, some things accelerate, some things decelerate, right? So one of the things I've always, been talking about that has been decelerating is real estate. And I'm wondering if you've personally done any of that, or you're hearing anything about that. And firms are not taking down as much real estate as they used to, and RIAs are reconfiguring their thoughts of what an office ought to look like, maybe have a nice meeting room and have everybody else on the sales desk, or I don't have to come in every day. I can do a lot of this, as you said, from home. I'm interested in how you see that progressing from your perspective as a producer and then as a recruiter.
Yeah, I'm out here in technology land in Seattle, where we got the Amazons and the Microsofts and whatnot. I mean, and this is my opinion, but I mean, Tony, we need people, energy creates energy. And I think eventually it's going to be close, more so business back to usual in the next 24 to 36 months, where we're going to have meetings in office. My team's been in my office ever since the pandemic. Yeah, we're wearing masks, but we work better in our office. And, so it's going to change a bit, and some platforms might create more opportunities where an advisor can work at home and whatnot. But that advisor, they need that energy. People need that interaction, for growth. So yeah, it might work for the short term and satellite locations, but clients like that interaction. The team likes that interaction, and yeah, they're going to now sprinkle in more technology and more Zoom calls. But I do think it's going to come back to that face-to-face relationship. That's in my industry, it comes down to financial planning. It's not transaction. It comes down to relationship, trust, and leadership. And you can do a lot of it over Zoom, but we still need that human interaction. That's my belief. So my point being, these technology companies, Amazon, Microsoft, where you can work at different locations, they're still requiring their employees to work in the office. So they give them some extension outside, but they're still asking them to come back in.
I agree. It's going to be a mix, like all technology, we'll adapt it where it makes sense for us and helps. In different practices, we'll do different things. And some people will save money on real estate and, figure out a way to make it smaller or better, and other people won't. It's just be the way the future is.
So let me ask you a question, Tony. If you were a broker dealer, or in my role, how do you think technology should be used, for the broker dealers out there, your partners that are looking at recruiting top candidates?
Start with recruiting. I mean, recruiting, in my mind, is a million times more efficient with Zoom than it is. I mean, if you can do it, the trick with all of the Zoom technology has been acceptance. In other words, I think 5 years ago, a $5 million producer like yourself would have been insulted if the CEO of name the firm didn't come and shake your hand and say, or at least you didn't meet him and look him in the eye or her in the eye and say, hey, it would have felt wrong. I think we're beyond that, which is a good thing. And the large producers that I talk to are like, this is great because I can have a meeting on the phone and my kids are on the other might go play with them at night. I'm not sitting in some hotel. No matter how nice you try to make it, put the guy up in the Waldorf Astoria or whatever, it's still away from home and it's a hassle. We used to use that in recruiting to sort of gauge commitment, right? So if somebody decides to make the trip, that means they're really interested. There was all that, but I think that's going to, I think it's going to make recruiting much more efficient because there's an acceptance there and people will certainly get back out and press the flesh. But if you can do it over Zoom, it's just much more efficient to do over Zoom.
And Tony, this kind of gets a little sensitive grounds, and I understand it. But when I meet with our clients, I mean, I'm always in a suit and tie. I mean, it's like, I don't want a doctor coming and giving me surgery in a polo shirt. So it's just, to me, it's respect to our clients. And then again, I feel like if we're having Zoom calls, why is that give me an opportunity to dress down to a client? So I feel like as advisors, we should give the clients the ultimate respect. And so these are real subtleties. Those are real subtleties, but it helps differentiate, your 10 million, in my mind, that $10 million producer from the $5 million producer. It's just, those small little things, how this world changes.
Jim Brinkley, who was the head of a great firm like Mason that I was at, used to say, there's no loss to wearing a tie. If you wear a tie and your client is not in a tie, then you're professional looking. If your client's wearing a tie and you're not wearing a tie, that's bad. And if you're both wearing a tie, you're in an inferior position because you don't look professional. There's no loss in wearing a tie. That being said, both he and you don't understand because just the way it is, when you're really good looking, you don't have to because people exist. So I'm on a different.
I understand. Than you guys. We're not always fortunate.
You'll never understand. You'll never understand. It's just easier for me. Because I'm good looking. I guess the final stuff that I'm thinking about here, we talked about sort of what accelerated and what decelerated. Give me your general opinion. We're still at the first quarter of 21. There are some things looming. People are saying there's this market's going to have a correction at some point. There's the pandemic is not quite beaten yet. There's taxes coming up that could be a potential issue for our industry. Are you seeing any of that affecting recruiting? I mean, we recruited through a real big dip. Still, what do you see for 21 in terms of where we're going to be?
Maybe I'm naive. I don't know, but in one of my early morning workouts, by myself in the garage, I listened to different podcasts and different articles in the Wall Street Journal and whatnot. And it was a fascinating podcast I listened to here recently that this guy, the journalist of the Wall Street Journal, did this study, and 31 businesses went out of business and were boarded up on Fifth Avenue in New York. And he's trying to, understand, well, what's happening, what's going to happen. But his fascinating study is that 42 new businesses were open. So that was like a net 11. Hey, we're going to figure this thing out. The market's going to go on to set record highs. We're going to have dips. We're going to have volatility. There's going to be problems in the industry. But to me, advisors are on the move. Broker dealers are going to keep breaking things to make it better. The good advisors are going to keep remaking themselves. This whole contraction, we've been here in our industry, Tony, we've been hearing it for 5 years. How we pay for the debt in 20 years from now, that's a different issue. But there's a bunch of tailwind behind us. There's many opportunities. And, I just think for those candidates or broker dealers that, on the move, if you want to grow, you want to get better, there's a lot of great opportunities out there. And I'd encourage those to take a call. And if you're feeling a little down, there's going to be opportunities. And if we can help you at 3xEquity anonymously consider your opportunities, we would be thrilled to do that. So I don't know, maybe I'm naive, but the market has always set record highs. No one thought the market was going up on January 6th the Capitol got invaded. So good stuff will happen in 2021 and 2022 and 2023. But yet there's going to be setbacks, and we work on our feet and we break things to make them better.
Right. Well, look, I'm going to leave it at that because that's a high note. I like that. So thanks, Jeff, for being here. We'll do this again at some point. And thanks for helping us at Advisor Hub with our advisors.
One commercial for Advisor Hub. Tony, you've done a great job in how you've remade it and what you provide to the industry and the professionalism and the content. So I know you and Patrick and your team have worked hard. So in the industry, we appreciate it. And you've taken a small business and made it into a much bigger business. So kudos to you and your team for doing that. So congratulations.
Appreciate it. And as a matter of fact, a lot of people would sort of shy away from that kind of flattery, but I think it actually earns you another spot on the Zoom call. So that's all good. All right, brother.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.